This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
A good heart and a solid soul is a rare thing. In an increasingly narcissistic and self-centered society where everybody is looking out for number one, there are a group of people committed and dedicated to the service of others. In order to have a heart that gives until it bleeds, you must first experience suffering, traveling down that same road as those you are attempting to assist, looking at the world through their eyes and listening with sympathetic ears. These angels are all around us, but are always in short supply. They are the undercover superheroes of a modern world. In times of confusion, they show up. They just appear. I'm Kevin Donaldson here with Mike Failace, and on this episode of the Suffering Podcast, we go international. We welcome Amanda Coleman all the way from Ireland to sit down with us and discuss the suffering of Irish Angel. Now,
I thought we were going to Ireland and do this.
That's our next remote podcast. Right. Now, Amanda has walked through the darkness, and she chose to change her life and now helps others. Amanda, thank you so much for coming in. It was probably a hard swim getting over here, right?
Yeah, paddled all day, all week.
How was it driving over that water, though? I mean, that'd be tough.
That's tough. It's a hard paddle, but thank you so much. It means a lot to us to come in. I know you're this international superstar, and you chose to come all this way just to sit down with us.
Of course. Sure, who else would I be sitting with?
That's what we were saying before. There's nothing else to see in the United States but us.
Oh, New Jersey's the best place to go. If you're coming to the States, you got to go to New Jersey.
It's huge.
New Jersey's huge?
New Jersey's huge.
Oh.
You could get from one side of New Jersey, top to bottom, in
2.5 hours. 2 hours, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But you can go east to west in an hour and 15.
Yeah, but when you think about it, Ireland's like nearly 2.5 hours from Dublin, which is on the east side, to the west side in like 2.5 hours. Like, it's ridiculous. So when you say that, like, New Jersey is basically Dublin going to Galway.
It's just harder to get around New Jersey.
Yeah.
Because a half-hour trip could sometimes take you 2 hours.
Yeah. You need to drive in the Midwest. So the Midwest, there is nothing. You go over a little hill. I mean, there's not even trees. You go over a little hill and you see for miles. You see tornadoes taking up Dorothy's house in the distance. And there is nothing. And it's just a straight road. Try to stay focused on that. For 5 hours, you don't see anybody. You don't see another car. That's the Midwest. So New Jersey's nothing for me.
Yeah.
Well, we did that in Florida. Remember when I had to drive all the way across?
So the story with Florida, Amanda, is we were doing shows down there, and we drove across the state from Tampa to West Palm.
And we didn't leave until about midnight.
You're right. So we're tired. We flew. It was awful. The last 5 minutes before we get to our Airbnb, he says, "Hey, Kevin, you want me to drive?" 5 minutes. But before we get into any of these great stories, we take a question every week from our audience, and it's our social media question. This one comes from Stanley, and Stanley writes, "What is holding you back?" And you can't say yourself, because that's just way too easy. That's low hanging fruit. So you got to think of something as if you were going to be able to do anything in your life, anything in the world that you ever wanted to do. Why aren't you doing it?
Because as I said earlier on, the government.
The government.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to put a lot of restrictions on people.
They do. No, it's not that. It's like, if you want to do things right, you want to come over. Say, for instance, me coming over here because I do what I do. Mm-hmm. It's extremely difficult when you want to do it right.
Well, we're afraid the IRA's coming over here.
What you got to do?
Watch yourself.
You see that look? You see that side-eye look?
And that'll do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast.
And by the way, we support
the cause.
Mike, what do you think?
Probably my height.
My height.
Well, no, that's a valid. That's your genetics in general.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a football player, professional football player, and I was never tall enough. I was never
talented enough.
Yeah, I can relate.
I'm
vertically challenged.
Yeah, without doubt.
I get it.
Boy, it's got to suck being both of you.
It is,
follically challenged.
For me, the only thing holding me back, I used to think when I was younger was a lot of different things, with financial, or it was my lot in life, or whatever it is. Now the only thing I see holding me back from doing real things that I want to do is time, because time is the one thing that you're not getting any more of it.
Yeah,
it's not going to regenerate. With doctors and stuff, you're getting a little bit more, but your expiration date is your expiration date.
That's it. And it's coming fast. The older you get,
Yeah,
the faster it comes.
faster and
It's like a
faster.
freight train.
You got that right. Father Time never stops.
No.
So we have this finite time, and it's not even, you don't even know. It's a guessing game. Nobody knows when they're going to die, and I don't think you'd want to know even if you could.
Well,
But you got to get in
Heather
as
said
much.
she knew.
Who?
Heather.
Heather, yeah, she said she knew, but
She won't
how are we
tell
going to
us.
know? How are we going to know if she knew? That's the thing. How are we going to know? She's a medium. So
Right.
she said she knows. But not that I disbelieve her, but it's that one of those guessing games. You better get it all out now because tomorrow could change.
That's it.
Living every day to the fullest type of mentality.
Live your life like it's fourth and goal.
Yeah, that's a good. I like that one. I'm going to tell my kids that.
You just don't realize that when you're younger. Time, you think you've got all the time in the world, right? And then it's just, well, as soon as you're older, it's poof, gone.
Then it seems you go to bed one night and you wake up and you're old.
It's insane.
It's unbelievable. Especially, the older you get, the faster time goes.
Exactly.
It seems like this summer, it seems like last week, I went up to one of the teachers in the school I work and I said, hey, what are you doing for this? What are you doing this summer? You got any plans? All of a sudden, we're back in school already. It felt like last week. I asked her the question.
So you remember that movie, The Crow?
Yes.
There was something. There was a phrase in there that always hit home, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. The bad guy, the super bad guy. He said, "The moment you're going to die, is when you stop being a child," and isn't that the truth?
It is the truth. Yeah.
Isn't that the truth? So Stanley, thank you so much for sending that one, and keep sending your questions in. We'll try to get them on the air.
You're not always going to be young, but you don't always have to grow up.
I haven't grown up at all. Before we go any further, let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Go to ToyotaHackensack.com. We buy our cars from Toyota because we trust them and we don't trust many people. So go to ToyotaHackensack.com. Let them find you a car. And while you're driving home in your brand new Toyota, check out Frontline Cigars. Go to FrontlineCigars.com. Put in the code TSP for a 15% discount. And please support our sponsors. They help us put on this show. They help us bring people to the table like Amanda to give us a little window into who they are, what they went through, and some of the perspective they're going to give us. So, Amanda, I'm going to ask you one of the most difficult questions that you're going to be asked on this show, and that's tell our audience about yourself.
As you know, I'm from Ireland. I have
Couldn't tell.
never. The accent, right?
I thought you were from
Right?
South Jersey.
Yeah. Well, maybe some parts of New York. Right?
Maybe, but you could change that into a Boston accent.
I could.
You could change that.
I think I could.
You just gotta hold your O's a little bit.
The more I'm around, because some of my team is from Boston, the more I'm around them, the more I'm talking like
Bunch of co-ops.
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 The car.
Tom Brady. All you got to do is get Mark Wahlberg from Ted, and you got it down.
I love it.
It's an Irish city,
Yeah.
so
it is.
it makes perfect sense but sometimes it's a little difficult to listen to. It's a little tough.
think?
It's a little tough for me to listen to,
Especially when you're a Yankee fan.
especially when you're listening to Kevin Kearns all day. Who, our former guest Kevin Kearns picked you up from the airport, so we want to give a shout out to him. Go to Burns with Kearns, and we thank him for bringing you to us.
And his book that we have displayed.
Absolutely, always pick last. That's why we got it in the back, because it was pick last. We're becoming quite the collectors of authors. We've got Charlie Cifarelli, which, if you're an animal lover, you got to check out 14th and 2nd. So it's about Star the New York Pit Bull, and you got to look that one up. And he wrote his wonderful girlfriend, Jen, wrote I'm a Star, which is a children's book, because Star was shot in the eye. So although it looks different, you're really not different. That's what the theory behind that is. Miracles of Manhattan by Pastor Ron Lewis. And then all the way in the back is The Grid System by Professor Teresa Agustinelli. So we make sure everybody... Where's your book? You bring your book in?
One day.
One day.
One day.
Then that's when we'll have you back, too. Or that's when we go to Ireland.
Yeah.
We go to Ireland and promote our book.
Yeah, it's...
Deal.
Yeah.
Everybody says that to me. They're like, when we're coming to do this event in Ireland, I'm like, I know.
Well, maybe sooner than you think. So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm...
Stop skirting a question.
Yeah. Deflecting.
No, I'm a mom of three. I have 3 kids, 2 girls. They're all grown up now. But they all live at home, of course, and a boy that's 14. So yeah, they keep me busy. But I was a hairdresser for 22 years in Ireland. So this is a complete turnaround of my life, basically. I never expected to be over here doing the work that I do right now, you know, so it's...
We don't get many hairdressers from Ireland coming in to do a podcast, you know?
No, you may be our first. You may be our first.
There's nothing I can do for you. Hope is gone.
So what do you do with what do you do with all that
Yeah,
red?
just keep chiming in.
I know my time is coming. Just saying.
What do you do with all that red frizzy hair?
Oh.
There's none. Do you know, right, in Ireland, right?
Well, that's a mutation. Red hair. Yes.
But like they have festivals now to try and get redheaded people to mate with redheaded people, because the redheads are it's a dying breed now.
As opposed to the United States, where they actually have a day called Kick a Ginger Day.
See, I may go to Ireland and paint my head red and go to one of these festivals and see if I could meet a nice Irish girl.
You would look like groundskeeper Willie from The Simpsons. But what drove you to being a hairdresser? Was that just a common...
I just wanted to do it. From being so young, my cousin was a hairdresser, and then I kind of looked up to her, and then I just started to play with dolls' hairs, and it just kind of grew from there, like, you know, and...
Did you enjoy it?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Touching people's dirty hair all day? I don't think so. I don't know if I could do it. I really don't know if I can do it. And I listen, I cut my
There's
kids'
worse
hair.
things now you could touch, in fairness.
See, when Kevin was
Get
younger,
your head out of the car.
when Kevin was younger and used to play with dolls, he never cut their hair that much. That's why Kevin went to clothing, the clothing industry.
They
because
were
he was
action figures.
right.
They were action figures.
When is Barbie an action figure? He used to put her legs in
G.I.
the air and
Jane.
throw Ken on top of her. That was an action figure.
At least I played with Barbie and not Ken.
Well,
Listen, when I was younger, I wanted a Susie Homemaker. It was a little home kitchen set. My father would never get it for me. I could have
Knowing
been a
your-
chef by now.
Knowing your father, I don't think that's possible. So explain to us like what you do. Like, I'm not that familiar with it, and I've seen The Quiet Man, so that's pretty much my knowledge of Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't look like there's a whole lot of things to do in Ireland, but I'm assuming now it's more metropolitan.
The Quiet Man is actually nothing like Ireland, in fairness. It really isn't. Like, I know it's a lovely story and everybody, you know, relates to it, whatever, but it actually isn't. I suppose years and years ago, maybe it was, but I mean, it's so far from the truth, you know?
full of Irish hooligans now.
Full Irish hooligans.
The
Conor McGregor's walking around everywhere.
Soccer hooligans.
Well, he's both a good role model for the Irish and a bad role model because he has some bad behaviors. Mm-hmm. He's a fighter though. I mean, what do you really expect a fighter? When Mike Tyson got into all his troubles here, what did you really expect? He was going to go out and be this great orator. Who knew that was going to happen? Because it seems to have happened lately.
Yeah.
So, but I know he's very, very patriotic when it comes to his home country.
Yeah.
You don't know him, do you? No.
I know someone who knows him.
All Irish people don't know each other, huh? Okay, so that's the next myth I just got to check off.
They're not all related either.
No. Well,
that's debatable.
so the question I have about Ireland is there still the big, I don't want to say war, but distaste between the Protestant and the Catholic?
There is, but not down south.
Mm.
It tends to be up north, like where the Troubles was.
Mm-hmm.
Even when the Troubles was on, the south was never really affected by it. Well, they were years ago when they bombed, years and years ago, and then the peace process came in, and even before that, the south was never really affected. So it was even though it was only 2 hours up the road, it was like a different world to us, And it was the same with the UK. Like my ex-husband was from England, and he knew nothing about what was going on over in Northern
So you
Ireland.
went and married a limey.
I did for me sins.
See, I'm going to throw out all
It
the
didn't
terms.
last long.
Yeah.
Just
I'm
saying.
going to throw all the good terms out there. But so the whole reason,
And the derogatory terms all
Absolutely.
at once. Yeah, you're good.
so the whole reason I am in America, the whole reason that my family is in America, is because my great grandmother was Catholic and my great grandfather was Protestant.
Mm-hmm.
So the old man dies in 1928, and they had one hobby because they had 9 kids. So they have one hobby that were all born 2 years apart in November and December, and they had one oops that was born in March, 3 years apart. But when the old man died in 28, any kid that was, I think, 12 and under was converted to Catholicism. Anybody 13 and older stayed Protestant. So half my family is split
Right.
between Catholic and Protestant. It's a really weird dynamic. I was told that when I was a little kid, and I couldn't wrap my head around it.
Had great holiday dinners.
Interesting.
You sit on opposite sides of the table and throw,
Right.
throw mashed potatoes and beer at each other.
You know, the funny thing is they never argued about religion. Politics, so the Catholics were one way and the Protestants were another way. Holy cow. I remember my Aunt Sally saying if Jesus Christ was this political party, I wouldn't vote for him. That's what she said. I'm not lying. I heard it. So you're here. You're not here because you're a pretty blonde. You're here for a reason, because you got one hell of a story, and you started getting into it. And I said, this is going to give me nightmares. Like, this is really going to give me nightmares. And it kind of segues into your current life. I know you have one of the most horrifying suffering stories, and we've heard a lot of them on here. So why don't you give us a little window into that?
God, a little window. I don't even know where to start because it's so long.
Start at conception.
Yeah, pretty much.
So when you were swimming, there was a little problem.
Yeah.
There was a little problem.
My mother and my father were together this one night.
Yeah,
Just
right.
one night.
9 months
One
later.
night at band camp.
One night we see what movies make it over the pond. Okay. So in order to come in here, you really gotta be well versed in Will Ferrell movies.
I love Will Ferrell.
Okay, so Will Ferrell movies, we will quote him
I love him.
quite frequently, especially Ricky Bobby.
Oh,
Ricky Bobby's the best. So
shake and bake.
I have this
baby
again. I have this conception of Ireland in my head, but it's mostly because I still have family over there, and they show me pictures of Belfast, and it's not the nicest area in the world.
No, it's not.
But that's like my conception of Ireland, and I know that's not the case.
Yeah.
I know that's not the case because I know there's a lot of beauty there as well.
Oh, it's gorgeous. There's
Yeah.
parts of it's beautiful. But the funny thing is, like when you go, like I said, it's only 2 hours from Dublin where I live. But if you go up into Belfast, it's very English. The architecture, everything. And don't get me wrong, there's parts of Ireland down south in Ireland, because we were ruled by English law for hundreds of years. But the buildings wouldn't be as they are up in Belfast. It's really dark.
That's my conception because
Yeah.
the way it was explained to me is there's not a lot of economic opportunity.
Yeah. There
So-
isn't.
Yeah.
There isn't. It's getting better though. In fairness, it is getting better. Like I was up there before COVID. I haven't been up there since. And you have like the Titanic Museum. That's unreal. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's right. It was built.
It was built in
It was
Belfast.
built there.
Built in
Yeah.
Belfast.
Yeah.
That's right. I
Yeah.
forgot about that.
It's honestly.
That's why you never trust Irish builders.
Excuse me. Was it an Englishman or was it an Irishman that built it?
Northern Irish builders. You never trust us. We're always up to something.
It would have been the Titanic.
So you were born. I don't know if you want to give the year, but you were obviously born. When were you born?
75.
You gave the year. You didn't have to give the year.
I'm an old fossil. I'm nice.
Well, I'm still the oldest one in the room.
I said
I
you
set
have
it up
to
that
own
way.
it. You have to own it.
I set it up that way, so you're always the oldest one in the room. So your young childhood, how was that?
My very first memory was when I want to say I was about 1.5, 2.5. No, 1.5 or 2. Sorry. My mom and dad. I had an older brother. He was 2 years older than I was, and my mom was in a very abusive marriage. My father used to beat the living hell out of her.
And you remember that?
I don't remember all of that. I remember, it's weird what you remember. Like I remember what I had on, like a red cardigan. That always sticks in my mind, and crying, and the babysitter being in the room. She was packing my bag. And it was only years later when I was talking to my mom about it, she was like, that actually happened. She says, the babysitter was there that day when we were packing the bags to go, you know? So it's weird. Like, you know, you wouldn't
certain
think you
things
would
that
have,
stick out.
you wouldn't think you would have that memory, but I do. I remember it well, you know? But, yeah, she was in a very abusive marriage, and Ireland in those days, you could not leave your husband. It was not the done thing. You were shunned upon. You were like the black sheep of the family. You just couldn't, you had to stick it out. So she did. She left for about a week. My nana sent her back. She didn't want shame brought to the family, you know. So she went back, and then one day my father came in and threw my little brother, he would have been possibly going on 4, against the wall. And she knew that was it. She had to get out.
Did you ever find out the source of this anger coming out of your father?
No.
No.
Was he a big drinker?
Yes. From what I gather.
That could-
But everyone kind of was then, and it wasn't necessarily.
Irish.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
see, now
Irish.
she's stereotyping.
Yeah, we're different now. But I mean, it's a weird one. It was nearly like it was fashionable to beat your wife. You know, that's how it was years ago in Ireland. It was just it was fashionable to beat your wife. But it was how much pounding would you take?
Was
you
it
know what
like
I mean?
to put them in line type of thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost like caveman days.
Yeah.
that's
pretty much.
That's a little, and that's not that long. 1975 is not that long ago. You know, that's really not that long ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would have said, okay, 1800s, that was the thing.
Yeah.
Still not acceptable, but a little bit more understandable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But 75, I mean, you're coming into the modern era there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was, like I said, it didn't go on. Not everybody did it, but yeah, you would get it quite a lot. It wouldn't be an unfamiliar thing, you know. You'd hear your parents fighting, and you just go off into a corner and or go down to your friends. You wouldn't, you know, it would just happen. It was a regular thing. Like that's how it is. And it wasn't just for me. It was like friends was the same too. So
did you rally around that? Did you ever talk about it with your friends? Like,
Not really,
my
we
mother and father
didn't.
were into it last night.
we would talk about it, but it would be, you'd kind of brush over it. We tend not to delve into it because I guess it's like everything else. It's a defense mechanism. You know what I mean? You just didn't talk about
It's
it.
almost got to be embarrassing for you also, no?
No, but it was kind of because it was what it was. Everyone was the same. The circles that we all moved in, nearly all of the fathers were the same. So it was weird how it was, you know.
And what was the profession? What did your father do for a living?
Painter and decorator.
He was a painter and decorator. And was that common? Like, what was the common trades around there? Was there factory work or was
Factory work. Yeah.
factory work?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which will drive you insane. You know,
Yes.
not to defend your father. I don't want to do that, but
Yeah.
that stuff will drive you insane. Doing
Yeah.
the same thing over and over every day.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it.
Yeah.
So how long did it go on for?
She left him when I think I was between 1.5, 2 when she left.
For good.
For good.
Yeah.
For good. My grandfather and I think it was my uncle, Johnny, went up to get my mum out of the house. They knew that he had beaten her so bad she locked herself in a room with a kettle just to heat up my bottles. She locked herself in the room, and my grandfather got wind of the word, and he drove down to Skerries, which is like, it's miles away in them days, because they didn't have, you know, like decent roads. It was all back roads, bendy little roads. So it was far a distance. But they went and they ended up taking my mom out of the house. And
I'm surprised your uncles didn't do anything physically to your father.
then my uncles, like my mom comes from a family of 7 kids, and the older ones were kind of married doing their own thing. It would Johnny and Paul would have been the youngest ones, and they would have been, you know, in and around the house more often. But they were young then; they would have been still young, you know. But yeah, they went. My grandfather hit him a dick,
Yeah, so-
basically.
So there was a story that I was told. My grandfather's sister, her husband, beat her,
Yeah,
and the only, and I heard this from my cousin. The only thing that nobody knows what was said. My grandfather's a pretty tough guy. Nobody knows what was said, but they know he took him in the back room and shut the door. And when he came out, they said he was white as a ghost, and he never touched his sister again. So I don't know what happened in there, but I always know that the brothers, especially my grandfather's family, were ultra protective of the women. Ultra protective. Like, you know, they're happy for him. It's not that they were jealous of their marriage or anything, but don't mistreat her. Don't mistreat her. And that's what, I don't know. That bothers me a little bit. That nobody stood up and was her advocate.
yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, if she said if all the guys were, well, not all, but most of them were doing it back then.
Yeah,
It's a cool thing.
Yeah, it was.
it was a thing.
You're not cool if you don't hate your wife.
Get on the bus. Come on.
But yeah, it's she left. When she left there, we lived in a little area that was like 3 rows of cottages, like, so it was a really small, you know, community. Everybody knew everybody's business, so it was shameful for her to be a single mom. And we were living in a trailer at the back of my nan's next door neighbour's house. We were in the back garden, and it was pretty bad, like, because we were broke ass poor. Everybody in Ireland then was poor. It didn't matter if you were working or what. Everyone was broke. So there wouldn't have been heating in there. There wouldn't have been, she used to put coats over us to keep us warm, that sort of thing. Like, so.
And you're a young child at this time.
Yeah, yeah.
But does it become normal?
Yeah, it does. You don't think about it,
I mean, if that's the way you're growing up, you don't know any better.
You don't know any better, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Even in today's world, I only had this discussion with somebody there the other day, and I was like, before, like, Ireland was always a nation where we would emigrate everywhere because we were a very poor country. We were poverty stricken, but everybody was the same. It was rare that you'd know somebody that would have enough money to immigrate to America or wherever. So people were kinder to each other, though. We always looked out for each other. You know what I mean? Everybody was in the same boat, and it wasn't a case of keeping up with the Joneses or whatever. It was just, we all had like a mutual understanding with each other. If one needed a slice of bread, you'd bring them over a slice of bread. If one needed a cup of sugar, that's how it was.
Right.
And people were just much nicer people than what they are now.
And then now
That's just because money spoils everything.
It does. It's the root of all evil. You need it to survive.
You need it to survive, but
yeah.
You're playing this catch-up game with everybody, like you said, keeping up with the Joneses. Or
Exactly. We joined the EU then, probably. I want to say it was
that's the European Union. I just want to translate.
Okay.
I speak Irish.
Thanks, buddy.
I speak Irish.
we went.
You got to spell stuff out for him, Amanda. Come on. Look at that.
It's not funny.
It is. It actually is. The blank expression on your face is hilarious. Just saying.
That's him thinking.
He's thinking. He's trying to come back with a comeback. It's just not happening.
Trying to work Mick something in there,
What is it with the Mick thing? I don't get that. Like, it's like
Mick is the slang term.
I know
for Irish here. And,
yeah, I know.
But I think that's the
But it
only
was
one.
like that's an insult. I mean, Jesus.
No, I was thinking like Mick, like a last name, Mick, like a McSorley or something like that. Nice Irish name I could throw out there. But
McSorley?
McSorley's is a bar.
Exactly. Come on.
McSorley's is a bar around here. Yeah.
Right.
An Irish bar in New York.
McSorass. So, how long did you live in the trailer for?
I actually think I was about 5, maybe 6 when we got a house. It was a little bungalow from the government, the social housing. So we moved to a place called New Grove in Dublin. So, as much as there was bad memories there, it was the best time of my childhood was then. I know that sounds weird.
In the cottage.
In the little cottage, yeah.
Yeah, but was it because of friends are around, or was it
Friends.
peaceful? It was peaceful.
Friends.
Yeah.
Friends, yeah.
And you had heat.
And we had we had an open fire. That's what we had. We had an open fire.
You had an open fire and plumbing.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the big one.
It's better than
But
the trailer.
no heating. No heat.
No heat. Oh my gosh, and it gets a little chilly over there.
Just be freezing.
Yeah.
But like, Jesus, my mum would have us. In fairness, she used to put you into the bed. She'd wrap you up like a mummy. You couldn't move, like you were like this in the bed.
Yeah.
She'd have sheets, blankets, everything wrapped around you.
Well, so you were all your mother had at that time.
Yeah.
So at least she looked after you.
Yeah.
Being a woman who is technically looked at as being disgraced, she could have given up, but she chose to fight through it. She had little ones to look after.
Yeah, and she had her own journey as well. Like, aside from everything else, she had her own thing going on as well. So it's
Did she work at all?
Yeah, she used to be a factory worker, when she met my father, but then he wouldn't allow her work. It was kind of like not the done thing. Then my mum was a looker and
stay home and get beaten.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like
Cook, clean, get beaten.
Yeah, it's like he was afraid that if she went to work, the men would be looking at her.
Obviously, the good times didn't last. When did it start to go down a little bit?
I suppose from an early kind of a stage, but you don't at the time, you don't even realize that it's going down. It's only when you look back that it was
slow
not a good
progression.
time. Yeah, right. So we were always broke, but my mom's friends would come over. They'd bring drink, and then there'd be parties, and you'd wake up with strange people in the house and bottles on the floor and all that kind of stuff.
Well, you said your mother was pretty. Was there guys coming in and out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good for her.
Yeah.
Now it's grand. Then I was like, no.
Well, I mean, at least she's got to cope somehow, and I guess did she turn to any unhealthy coping mechanisms to get her through?
Yeah, drinking at the time.
What was the drink of choice?
Bacardi.
An Irish person drinking
Drink a
Bacardi?
Bacardi.
Bacardi was her thing.
Come on, Jameson.
No.
No, that's expensive stuff.
Tullamore Dew.
Rot gut whiskey. Stuff you used to drink in college. That's what you got to drink. So where did you guys go from there?
It was weird. She grew up with my sister's dad. They all went to school together and what have you. And he came into our lives again. He always had a thing for my mum. And in actual fact, the night before she got married, he asked her not to marry him. And so did her father. Her father told her not to marry him. But she married him anyway, just because, it's a rebellion thing to do, right?
Was she a young woman or?
Yeah.
What,
She was 19 when she got married.
the second time or the
No,
first time? First time.
She
Okay.
only got married once.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, your father. He said not to marry. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
But what about, was there another long-term boyfriend coming in?
Yeah, Eddie was always there, which is my sister's dad.
Your sister's dad.
But that was a volatile relationship. That was the same. He was great to us, in fairness. It's weird to say that because there would be the beatings and we would get beaten too. But it was the most stable we had been, and we had more than we ever had. Eddie had a great job, and he always looked after us like his own. So even to this day I have a love for Eddie, even though we went through some shit with him. So
Well, there's a difference between disciplining your children and beating your children.
yeah.
And I'm not saying what he did was either way or the other, but kids know that. Like,
Yeah.
kids pick up on that stuff.
Yeah.
When you're just a sadistic son of a bitch versus somebody who's trying to set those kids on the right path.
Yeah. Well, you see, it was kind of weird because he would treat me with the discipline end of things. But my older brother, David was pretty messed up from a young age.
Well, he got thrown up against a wall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
kidding.
So
That'll do it.
he was always like the rebellious kid, and he was always, in trouble in school, wouldn't do any work in school. When he was 8, the police was knocking on the door because he'd thrown a brick through somebody's window. He was always an angry kid. Like, he was an angry kid. And yeah, we just, like, it was weird because he was a lovable kid as well. He had a really loving side to him with his family. But he just had like this troublesome streak in him that no matter what you did with him, he would never listen. He would never, he'd always do his own thing.
Do you think that, and in all fairness, do you think that had to do with how your father treated him?
Or actually what he even saw.
Yeah, pretty much. But that attributed to his way as well. He got progressively worse.
I was reading this article the other day about it was saying how most adult mental issues stem from
When they
childhood
were a child.
trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Which is-
Absolutely. I could understand that.
I think so.
me too.
Yeah. So that your brother did he ever get locked up, or they just came in?
Yeah, well, he got into juvie. Like, he was 2 weeks locked up in juvenile in Mountjoy. That was enough to scare the living shit out of him. So he's like, I've had enough.
He straightened himself out after that?
Well, he did and he didn't.
Or for the most part.
David was kind of like this kid that always wanted to prove himself to his mates, even if it meant taking the blame for them.
Yeah.
He always had to be the big man. Maybe it was because he never had that stable man in his life. That whole, I don't know. It's the only way I can think of it.
Did he always have to try to prove himself to your father?
Yeah.
Because that's probably what it's from. If he could never prove himself to his father, he's
Well, it
trying
was
to prove
trying to
himself
prove himself
his...
to everybody
Yeah.
because we were kind of shun upon. As much as my grandparents were there, they weren't. Like, our family kind of, because my mom was she was separated, and because we were doing our own thing, she was shunned upon, and so were we as kids.
Yeah.
So you know what though, it kind of makes sense. I believe that if I'm going to get blamed for something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
So if you're going to look down on me, well, screw you. I'm going to go do.
I'll give you a reason to look down on me.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
going to give you a reason.
Yeah.
So I think, looking back, and I don't know your brother, but I can only theorize that might be one of the reasons that he did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And did he ever straighten his life out?
He did.
Mm-hmm.
David was, I want to say he was 17. He got in a spot of bother again, and he thought he was going to be locked up in big boys prison this time.
Mm.
And so he went on the run. He went over to the UK, and eventually he came back and he turned himself in. Now I have family there in law enforcement, but the cops had a great relationship with him. It was weird because he was always in trouble. He was always had probation officers from the time he was young all the way up, right? So they had they actually loved him, and sadly David died in 93, but they gave him a Garda escort for his funeral and everything.
Really?
Yeah.
They lost a lot of business that day.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but he had he was doing so well. He was he was working. He'd moved to my nan's. He was working. He had got trials for the Dublin team, which is huge for us. I suppose it's like one of your American football teams, right? Only it's Irish football. And then he went out in a car one Sunday night, and his car hit a tree. And David was the passenger in a car, and he didn't have a seatbelt on, so he went out the back window. So David died that night.
That's a horrible.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's a horrible thing. And how old were you when David passed?
17.
He was 19?
19.
19. But so did your mother ever get you're in the house now, she's working. Did she sort of straighten everything out?
No.
No.
So there was because her relationship was on and off all the time with my sister's dad. At this stage, my sister had come along, and their relationship was, as I said, it was always on and off. And eventually we moved. The house that we were in was too small. It was a 2-bedroom place. And in Ireland, if you're in social housing, you can't. It was against the law to have boys and girls sleep together if they were over a certain age. So we got transferred to a 3-bedroom place, which was where we grew up, where my nana was from, where all our family is from. So we got a place there, and then life just kind of got a bit crazy. I sadly, well, when I say sadly, yeah, I was abused by a family member from the age of, I was 9 till I was 13.
Mm.
So so that was a tough one, because you're a kid.
It takes a mental toll on you.
It does. You blame yourself. You think it's your fault. That's just a given.
Most victims do.
Yeah, it's a given. So you never speak about it. You don't say anything to anybody. So
we have a little bit of experience in this, because one of our guests, Clark Fredericks, was in here, and he was raped when he was 12. And the playbook that these people who do this stuff is almost the same. I'll bet they soften you up with certain touching, and it's a progress. It's not just
grooming.
It's
grooming.
It's not just grab you and go to town. It's a progression.
It is, yeah.
Until one day it happens, and it's a family member too. It's not even like it's a family friend or somebody outside the family. It's somebody that you have to look at all the time.
Exactly.
And probably someone you looked up to.
Yes, very much so.
Now, how did you deal with that?
Just got on with it.
You just got on with it. There's no residual effects. I'm sure you've had residual effects from it.
Yeah, but it's I'm one of these people, I don't even know where I get this mindset from. I suppose when I look back on my mom's life and I see where she's at now, when I look back at it and I think to myself, do I want to be the victim or do I not? Do I want to be the victor? So I don't look back. And even all through, and my story, so even all through my life, I never look in that rearview mirror unless I have to. There's something that brings me back there that I have to. Because if you do that, it's won. It's beaten you, I'll be damned if I let anything beat
So
me.
what's the one saying? That the front windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror.
It's true.
So keep looking forward.
Just keep going. And sometimes and I suppose because there was always, for me, it was always repeated trauma. So you never really had time to process what had happened prior to what you were experiencing right
I was
now.
supposed to say, was it like a daily or weekly thing like that?
Or was it a one-time issue?
No. It went on for years. It went on but it wasn't a constant. It wasn't a constant. In fairness, I stayed away. I stayed away on purpose.
Your mother never got any inkling that this was happening? Does she know now?
Yes.
She does.
Yeah.
Did she believe it?
Yes.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that, because most of the time when that happens, they don't believe it.
Yeah. No. She believed it.
She believed it. Is it possible that maybe she was? Yeah. What a sin. What a sin. I just don't understand. It's a bent gene in people.
It's got to be.
You know,
Yeah.
it's a sickness, or it's a power thing, and I can't think like them. Thankfully, I can't think
Yeah.
like them. And there's a special place in hell for those people
There is.
that take the innocence of children.
There is.
It's called Ireland. I'm sorry. Get back on the story. I'm sorry.
And once again, Mike throws in that you're 2 for 2 on that one, man.
I get you.
We can have nobody else in here with child sexual abuse ever, because they're just going to no, Mike's going to break my chops and make fun of my trauma.
Clark would have beat my ass. She may jump over the table and beat my ass too. I don't know, but
Amanda's only 5 foot tall, and Clark was like 6'2".
she packs a punch though.
He was a big dude, but when did it end? Like, what happened that it stopped?
I actually told somebody in my family, a cousin I told, and she went and told, I don't know if she told her dad, but she told my other uncle who was very close with her dad. So I was questioned about it. I denied it. And then the person said to me, they kept drumming at me. You told the secret. Why did you tell? So that was my cue to stay the hell away.
Well, did they arrest him?
No. It was brushed under the carpet. It was like I was a liar. I was the liar.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
How? God, thank God. That's one of the, I say a lot of the progression we made as a society, as a global race of people is not always in a good direction. Mm-hmm. But the fact that victims of childhood sexual abuse are believed now,
yes,
is one of the progresses that are such a good thing.
Yeah.
Such a good thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So you stayed away. How was the rest of your childhood?
Terrible. Oh my God.
Oh.
Terrible.
Tell us another fun story.
Do we have commercial breaks?
I just missed me. No, it's like I met a boy. I was dating a boy for about a year, and he was always trying it on. At this stage, I was 15.
Of course, he's always trying to get it in.
15-year-old boy.
Yeah.
I wasn't having a bar of it though. I just wasn't. And he used to embarrass me. He'd always for some reason I always used to wear white. I have no clue, but he used to call me his virgin in white in front of people. And it was embarrassing, because you didn't know where to look. You'd be mortified, especially in old Ireland. It was like, in them days, it was, it's not like what it is now. People didn't talk about sex, right? So, I went out with him for about a year, and then we broke up. And then he called me, and where I lived, so it's hard to explain. So I lived near the airport. As I said, we were like 3 little rows of cottages in the middle of an industrial estate, right? So there was all factories built the whole way around it. And then when you walked up, you had Santry Stadium, which is the national sports stadium. And at the back of that was all like what you would call the ghetto, right? It was a place called Ballymun. And it was rough. If you thought you were poor, the people in Ballymun were worse, way worse off than you were.
Poorer.
Yeah, right. So, but it was drugs and it was alcohol and it was a horrible place. It was all high-rise buildings and it was ugly. And so I broke up with him, and then one day he called me and he said, can you come over? And I was like, sure, yeah. I said, what's up? And he was like, I want to get back together and la 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 la. So me being me, skips on over to walks up. I'll never forget, it was a November night, freezing cold, and it's not cool to wear a coat, right? So I had like 3 jumpers on. I was layering. And off up I went, and I met him, and he had a pit bull, a bull mastiff. Is that what the one with the big nose?
Bull Mastiff.
Bull mastiff.
Bull Mastiff, yeah.
He had one of them with him, and it was his friend's dog. But his friend lived in one of the high-rise buildings, and he was minding his place for him and looking after the dog. So he said, "Come on," he said, "Will you walk up? I have to go feed the dog." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So we were talking, everything seemed normal, and then we went into it was the 14th floor of a tower called Joseph Plunkett Tower in Ballymun, and we walked in, and it was a dingy little place. And the door, I remember the door right in front was the bedroom. The door was open, and there was nothing but a mattress on the floor and like a chest of drawers in the corner with a mirror on top. And there was like a butcher's belt across the top of it. And he says, "Oh, this is my friend's place. He's a butcher, la 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 la." So I was like, "Grand, yeah, whatever." He says, "Come on in." So it wouldn't have been a bad thing to go in and sit with someone and kiss them. Like it was that,
Yeah.
in my mind's eye, we were getting back together, right? And then he walked over to the chest of drawer, and he pulled out a knife about this size. And he said to me, he said, you never gave it to me. He says, "But I'm going to take it now." And he put the knife to my throat, and he got on top of me, and he raped me that day. It was pretty shitty.
Yeah,
You
to say
know?
the least.
And that it didn't end there. Like, so the dog was barking on the balcony, all the things that go through your mind, right? So I remember him being on top of me. I remember just I could hear every noise around everything. It's weird. It's like you zone out from what he's doing, and you're just thinking about what's around you, right? So the dog is outside and it's barking. So he eventually gets up and goes out to the dog. And as he does that, I jump up, pull back up my pants and run out the door. And I'm trying to get down the lift before he came back out. So I gets down the lift, and I started to run. I ran from Joseph Plunkett Tower and down past Santry Stadium, and it was all woodlands. So I'm running past there, and next of all, I hear him behind me, and he's calling me, and he has the dog with him, and he set the dog on me.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a
Insult to injury.
yeah. The dog locked onto my arm, and thank God I had the 3 jumpers on, because he didn't, he stood there laughing at me, and then he called the dog off. So it was, and again, it's like, what in your mind's eye, you're saying, what am I actually doing to have this happen
Yeah.
continuously?
Am I like asking for it?
Right.
Am I doing something?
Exactly, right? So it was just, it was horrible.
That is horrible, and I'm sorry that happened to you, because no human being on earth deserves half of what you just described. Nobody. I don't care what, even if you said, "Hey, come here and brutalize me," still don't deserve it.
No.
Still don't deserve it.
But that wasn't the end of him. Like, it was weird, right? So I told my best friend Anne, and I stayed in her place that night. No, sorry, it was that weekend. I stayed in her place, and it was the following weekend, and we were in bed, we were asleep, and next of all, her mom walked in the door, and she said, "You need to go home." And I was like, "Why? What's wrong?" And she says, "Oh, your mom wants you or something. David rang, you need to go home." And I was like, "Okay." And we only lived like 5 doors up, so I ran into the house. And when I ran in, my brother's sitting there drinking, and he's sitting there drinking too. And he told my brother that I had slept with him willingly. So my brother was now thinking,
He's mad at you.
Yeah. He mad at
no,
you.
he wasn't mad at me. He was like, see, this is the weird thing. He was like, "I just heard that you had sex with him." And I was like, I just ran out. I didn't even know where to look, So, and again, in your mind's eye, you're just going to yourself, nobody is going to believe you.
Yeah. Okay.
Nobody is going to believe you,
Didn't believe you the first time.
Exactly. So, you just didn't say it. So eventually I told David, but David, he was a young man. Like he's going around getting his jump on everywhere, right? So he
I like that. That's a much better way to say it, getting his jump on.
Yeah, no kidding.
so
I'm gonna
he
go out and get my jump on tonight.
so but David at this time, David was he was smoking hash. Hash was a big deal then. Like you're talking about the 80s, right? Yeah. So it was a big deal then. He was smoking hash, and he would blackmail me to giving him my pocket money so that, you know, he could go out and buy his 5-spot or whatever. And he used to say that he'd tell me mum that I had sex with thing, and that nearly destroyed me because I didn't want her, you know.
So now you're being blackmailed by your own brother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Over being raped by your brother's friend.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Did it lead to some later unhealthy relationships because of
for
this?
me?
For you? No, for your brother.
he's had many. It did. Well, it did and it didn't. You know, I guess when you've been hurt that much, you know, you tend.
It's the only thing you know.
You callous,
yeah, it
too.
was, but it wasn't that you were going around and purposely, you know, sleeping
Seeking
with
out,
people
yeah.
or anything like that. It was you looked for love. All you wanted was affection. You didn't, you know, you wanted genuine love that you weren't getting with your own family. So, like your, you know, your brother's blackmailing you. Your mom is in and out. She's doing her own thing at this stage. Eddie was in and out. They were fighting all the time. You know, and you had your little sister to look after, and it was just a really weird time. So I never really had a serious relationship until things got progressively worse. And that relationship, me entering that relationship, was just looking for comfort, looking for love.
And I imagine the first person to
Showed you that
it's
attention
game,
or affection.
Game on. Even if it wasn't genuine, it doesn't matter. It's what you perceive.
The funny
because
thing,
guys could fake it.
yeah, exactly. It's true though.
What are you,
They
Frank
do it all
Drebin?
the time.
Frank Drebin? I faked every orgasm. It's from a popular movie
I
called
know
the Naked Gun. Oh yeah, you're in the police world, so you know the Naked Gun.
I do.
Nice beaver.
So you got married at a young age?
No, I didn't. My life got a little bit worse after my mom. She met an American. He was a pilot, and she was smitten by him. Like she left. Like her and Eddie completely finished because Howard was now her world. So the relationship was going. He was always over in Dublin. He was always flying into Dublin. Yeah, and he then asked her to go to the States. So she did. And she left us on her own for 3 months.
He was an American?
He was an American.
Yeah,
So.
dirty Americans. You can't trust them.
No, right?
Can't trust them.
Watch out for those.
But yeah, so she went over to America for 3 months.
Now your only protection, and what little protection there was, that your only protection from this horror that you've experienced throughout your life is now in another country.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now your only protection there is your brother who was blackmailing you
Yeah.
to begin with.
And then David was getting so bad, like he was sniffing glue. I found him under a gas bottle. You know, he had sniffed gas and passed out. And he was even aerosol cans. I don't even know what
yeah.
I don't even know what you
Huffing.
do with that kind of thing.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
some
they call
people
it-
I know that used to do that, huffing.
They call it huffing.
Some people will put paint in a sock and they'll
Yeah.
do it that way. And I mean, it's not much hiding it
They used to have the gold all
silver mouth, you know. So
Yeah, it was something about the gold and silver paint
yeah,
that
I
they
guess
used
it
to
was.
like.
I guess it was better, but yeah, that was the thing. That's a
Yeah.
pretty big thing over here because it freezes your brain.
Yeah.
The aerosol will freeze your brain, give you a little bit of a high.
Yeah.
That's what happened to you. Go ahead.
Maybe a little bit.
Then David got into it with me. We had a fight, and he hit me really bad. Like I was winded for. Oh my God, I was in a lot of pain.
So now you're getting abused by yet another man.
Yeah. So my uncle Johnny, he came over. I called him. And Johnny came over and he took me out of the house, and I stayed with him. My sister was already staying with her dad, But David was there on his own, so I would go and do the grocery shopping and give me a list, and I go to shop, do the shopping. I'm looking at, why is there all this cleaning products? The house was filthy, right? I'm like, why are you asking me for all this? That's when I realized what he was doing with the cleaning products, right? So, so eventually my mom came home. And I can't, do you know what? There's a part of it I don't even know if I purposely blank it out. I don't know. It's just kind of really foggy. But there was times that David tried to slit his wrists twice. And my mom, she used to get herself so drunk that she would shake pills at me, threaten to kill herself all the time. So I would jump out of the bed, run down, knock the pills out of her hand and just try and stop it, And as time went on, her and Howard split up, sort of. And anyway, she ended up saying that she was going to take the pills. And I said, you know what? Just do it. I said, I'm done. I was a kid. I was like, I had had enough. I was between my mom. It was just like, it was horrible. So little did I know she did take the pills. And I found her that morning. That was horrible. She was on death's door. So that was kind of, Howard had heard that my mom was in that state, so he flew back over from America, and they got back together, and everything seemed okay for a while, and then he asked her to go back to America again. So in doing that, she says, sure. She said, but I'm not happy leaving Amanda here. At this stage, David was in trouble with the police again. He had run over to England. And my sister was with with her dad. So my mom, because we were in social housing, we were in a 3-bedroom house. My mom wanted me to move into this little apartment in Ballymun, in the ghetto. Right, but it was kind of in the nicest part of the ghetto.
The nice part of the ghetto.
The nice part. It's a 1-bedroom place till she got home. And so it was my sister's uncle's girlfriend that we were transferring with. And my mum packed everything up. She went to America that night. And because it was a social house and everybody knew my mum was gone away, everyone was fighting for that house for their own family on the street. They all wanted the house. So a massive fight broke out on the street. And I was thrown into a van, and I was put to Ballymun, back up to the flats again, to a stranger's house. I'd never met these people before. They were the girl my mum was supposed to transfer with. It was her cousin, I think. And there was 2 grown men, a woman, and 5 children in a 2-bedroom, grungy, disgusting flat, like. So I was waiting to find out what was going on with our house. To me, I was still going to go to the place we were supposed to move to. And then they came up and they said, no, everything is gone. So they took every belonging that we had, and I don't know what happened to it. No, I had not got a stitch of clothing, nothing. Everything was gone.
Whatever was on your back.
Everything, but yeah.
You know what, Amanda? We can't do this in one episode.
No.
We cannot do this in one episode. There's too much here. There's way too much, because we haven't even gotten
to the root of everything.
Yeah. We haven't even gotten to the whole reason what you do now. We
didn't get through. I mean, we didn't even get through her suffering. Never mind, how she came through her suffering.
Would you be willing to come back next week so we can finish this up?
Absolutely.
Fly back from Ireland for us.
You just go home.
You're lucky I'm here for a bit.
take a nap. Come back. We're going to finish this up on the next episode, and we're going to get into this. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast. We're not even going to talk about the stuff that we learned. We learned that Amanda had a really shitty childhood.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's beyond compare. Tune in next week, and you're not gonna want to miss this one, because we're going to learn how Amanda comes out of this, because it's a remarkable story. So once again, that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, part 1 of the Suffering of Irish Angel, Amanda Coleman. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow the Suffering Podcast. Follow Mike at Mike_Failace. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson. And follow Blue Irish Angel on Instagram. And we are going to see you on the next episode of the Suffering Podcast.